So the next one is soil pollution. The use of chemical fertilizer, pesticides, and the industrial waste disposal leads to the soil contamination. Pollutant can persist in the soil, affecting its health and the organisms that live in or rely on it. So, the use of persistent organic pollutant in agriculture can contaminate the soil and harm the beneficial soil microorganism. So, the soil pollution reduce its soil fertility, affect plant health, and disturb the ecosystem. Contaminated soil can also lead to the accumulation of toxins in the plant and the animals, affecting the entire food web. So, soil contaminations with heavy metals from mining activities can render and land unsustainable for the agriculture and also harmful for the wildlife. So we can say that the biodiversity is threatened by the habitat destructions, climate change, and pollutions. And these threats result in the human activities and have severe impact on the ecosystem species and the ecological process. So, addressing these challenges require the concerned effort to conserve natural habitat, mitigate the climate change, and reduce the pollution to protect the or sustain the biodiversity for the future generation. So now come to the point the over exploitation. Over exploitation refers to the excessive use of the natural resources which is leading to their depletions and potential collapse for the ecosystem. The major form of over exploitations including the overfishing, hunting, wildlife trades. Okay, so these activities significantly threaten the biodiversity and the ecosystem stability. So let's talk about the first point, that is overfishing. Modern fishing methods such as trawling, long lining, and the use of the large fishing fleets have the dramatically increased in the efficiency and the scale of fish harvesting and has led to the depletion of many fishes, many population of many fishes. So the Atlantic cod fishery of the coast of the Newfoundland, Canada collapsed in early 1990 due to the overfishing, leading to the cod fishing that yet had to be fully recovered the population of that species. And we also says that the unintentional captures of known target species contribute to the decline of fish stocks and the other marine life. Bycatch often include juvenile and endangered species and known commercial fishes also. Okay, so trawling nets intended to shrimp can capture and kill many known target species, including the sea turtle and the small fishes. So the impact of overfishing is overfishing reduce the fish population to the unsustainable level, threatening to the survival of the species, and this can lead to the collapse of the entire fishes and the loss of the species. The bluefin tuna population had drastically declined due to the high demand for the sushi and which leading to the overfishing and a severe number reduction in the number. Okay, ecosystem dispersion. In that, removing large number of fish disturb the marine ecosystem, affecting the predator prey relationship and overall health of the ocean environment. In that, we can say that the decline of the predatory fish such as shark can lead to an increase in the population of their prey, which can then overgaze on vital habitat like the coral reef. Overfishing leads to the collapse of the fisheries, resulting in a significant economic loss for the communities that rely on fishing for their livelihood. It has also impacted the global food security. Next one is hunting. Hunting unsustainable hunting practices. So, substance of the commercial hunting in that the hunting is substance sport and the commercial purpose can become unsustainable when it exceeds to the reproductive capacity of wildlife population. This can increases by the lack of effective regulation and the enforcement. By hunting the African elephant for their ivory has led to the significant decline in their population across the continent. And in many regions, hunting wildlife for bushmeat, bushmeat, which is the wild meat, is a major source of protein from the local communities. However, unsustainable hunting practices can lead to the decreasing of the wildlife population. So, in Central Africa, the hunting of the primates and the other wildlife for bushmeat had severely impact on the population and threatened the biodiversity in that particular region. Okay, so overhunting can drive species to the extinctions and particularly those with the low productive rates and the specialized habitat requirement. In that, we take the example of the passenger pigeon. One of the abundant in the North America was driven to the extinction in early 20th century due to the overhunting and the habitat destruction. It also impact on the ecosystem, responsible for the imbalance of the ecosystem. The removal of the key species through hunting disturb the ecosystem and lead to the diverse effect, or we can say that inverse effect on the other species and the ecological process. The hunting of the apex predators such as wolf can lead to an increase in the behavior or increase in the herbivorous population, resulting in the overgrazing and the habitat degradation. After that, uh, the loss of wildlife can have significant cultural impact also on the local communities that rely on hunting for their cultural practice and the traditional livelihood. So the indigenous community in the Arctic rely on the hunting species such as seal and nutrition and economic purpose. So overhunting and the environmental changes threaten these practices. And the last one is wildlife trade, illegal trade in the wildlife. So the illegal wildlife trades is driven by the high demand of the exotic pets, traditional medicines, luxury goods, and the trophies. This trade is often lucrative and involves an organized crime network also. The demand of rhino horns in the Asia for the traditional medicines had a status symbol and has led to increased poaching and illegal trade, pushing rhino populations to the brink of the extinction. Uh, Weak enforcement of wildlife protections laws and the corruption facilitate the illegal trade in wildlife. Poachers and traffickers exploit their weakness to transport and sell wildlife products. So, despite of international ban, the illegal trade in the tiger parts continue driven by the high price and inadequate enforcement in the some countries. So, what is the impact of the wildlife trade or illegal trade in wildlife? Population decline, biodiversity loss, and the disease transmission. The illegal wildlife trade leads to the drastic decline in the population of the targeted species, many of which are already endangered or threatened. And the illegal trade in the pangolin, the world most trafficked mammal, has led to severe population decline across Asia and the Africa. The removal of species from their natural habitat disturb the ecosystem and reduce the biodiversity, affecting ecological balance and the resilience. The trade of exotic bird for the pet market had also led to the decline of many parrot species in South America, impacting the forest ecosystem where they play a role in the seed dispersal. Disease transmission. The illegal wildlife trade increased the risk of zoonotic disease which is transformed from animal to the human by bringing human into close contact with the wild animal and their pathogens. The COVID-19 pandemic is believed to have originated from wildlife sold in the market, highlighting the public health risk associated with the illegal wildlife trade. So we can say that the over exploitations through the overfishing, unsustainable hunting practices, and the illegal wildlife trade poses the significant threat to the biodiversity, and these activities led to the population decline, species extinctions, disturbance, and the economic loss. So, addressing over exploitation requires robust conservation measures, effective regulations, and global cooperation to protect the wildlife and ensure the sustainable use of the natural resources. Next is invasive species. In that, invasive species are the plant, animals, and the microorganisms that are not native to a particular ecosystem and whose introduction cause or likely to cause harm to the environment, economy, or the human health. These species are often introduced unintentionally or accidentally by the human activities. So, invasive species can be introduced through the global trade, travel, agriculture, and landscaping, among the other means. So, what are the characteristics of invasive species? First one is high reproductive rate. Invasive species often have the high reproductive rates and can spread rapidly. Many invasive plants produce a large number of seeds that can be dispersed over wide areas. Okay, aggressive growth. Invasive species tend to grow and spread more aggressively than the native species, given them a competitive advantages. And invasive animal may have few natural predator in their new environment, allowing their population to grow unchecked. Invasive species are typically highly adaptable to the range of environmental conditions. They can often thrive in the disturbed environment where native species may struggle. So, if you are taking the example of some invasive species, the Asian crab. Asian crab is also included in the invasive species. It includes several species like the silver crab and the grass crab, which is native to the East Asia and introduced in the United States in 1970. Or after that, Asian crab are prolific breeder and the efficient feeder that consume large quantities of the plankton, which is crucial food source for the native fishes. So, Asian crab outcome native fish species for food and habitat, leading to the decline in native fish population. They can also alter the economic ecosystem or pose a threat for the commercial and recreational fishing industries. So, how to overcome from the native species? First one is resource competitions. Okay, in resource competition, invasive species often compete with the native species to, or we can say that for the resource. such as water, food, light, and spaces. The efficient use of these resources can lead to the displacement and the decline of the native species. Okay, invasive species like the garlic mustard release chemical into the soil that inhibited the growth of the native plants. Okay, so invasive species can prey on native species or overgraze vegetation and reduce the population of the native organism and altering the structure of the ecosystem also. In that, we can take the example of the brown tea snake, which has led to the decline and extinction of the several native bird species due to the predation. Now come to the point, the altering ecosystem. In that, the invasive species can significantly alter the habitat, making them unsuitable for the native species. This can lead to the challenges in the composition and functions of the ecosystem. Okay. Invasive species can disturb established ecological relationships such as the pollination, seed dispersal, and the predator-prey dynamic, leading to the broader ecological consequences. So, in this case, we can say that the introduction of the cane toad to Australian has disturbed the local food web, as the toad are toxic to many native predators that attempt to eat them. So it also have some economic and the health impact also. In economic cost, managing the invasive species can be costly, and including the expenses related to the control efforts, damage to the infrastructures, and loss to the agriculture productivity. The annual cost of managing invasive species in the United States is estimated to be billions of dollars, and including the efforts to control the invasive plants, animals. Okay. Now, health risk. Some invasive species can pose direct health risk to the human by spreading disease, causing allergies, and through the direct physical harm. The Asian tiger mosquito is the invasive species in many pets or in many parts of the world, is a vector for disease such as dengue fever and chikungunya. So, invasive species are non-native organisms that cause harm to the environment, economy, and the human health. So, their presence can lead to the significant ecological, economic, and the health impact, highlighting the need for the effective management and prevention strategies to protect biodiversity and the ecosystem integrity. Conservation strategies. Conservation strategies are essential to protecting the biodiversity and ensuring the sustainability of the ecosystem. If you are talking about the key strategies, including established protected areas and promoting the sustainable practices in agriculture, forestry, and the fisheries. So, these strategies aims to prevent the habitat, protect species, and maintain the ecological process. Protected area, national park, reserve, marine protected areas. So, protected areas are the reason designated for the prevention or preservation of natural resources, ecosystem, and the biodiversity. These areas are managed to limit human activities and provide a safe habitat for the species to thrive. National park are the large natural area protected by the national government for the conservation of wildlife, habitat, and the natural features. They are often established to provide the public enjoyment and education while preserving the environment. Yellowstone National Park in United States, established in 1872, is the one of the first national park in the world, and is the home to the diverse wildlife, including the bison, grizzly bear, and the wolf. So, what is the purpose of this national park? National Park aims to conserve the landscape and the biodiversity, provide opportunity for the scientific research, and offer the recreational activities for the public. So, in that case, the management practices in national park, including the regulating visitor access, controlling the invasive species, monitoring wildlife population, and conducting the habitat restoration. In Kungay National Park in South Africa, efforts to control the invasive plant species and manage the elephant population help maintain the ecological balance. Next is reserve. In that, the reserve are protected area that can be designated at local, national, or the international level. They often focus on the species conservation's objectives, such as the protecting enlarged or endangered species and a unique habitat. Okay, so the aim or purpose of these reserves are to protect the crucial habitat, conserve the biodiversity, and provide the opportunity for research and the education. Management strategies to reserve include habitat restoration, species reintroduction, and anti-poaching measures, and the community engagement. Next is marine protected areas. In marine protected areas, yes, uh, marine protected areas are the region of the oceans and the coastal water designated for the conservation of the marine ecosystem and the biodiversity. They restrict certain activities such as fishing, mining, and the tourism to protect the marine habitat and the species. In that case, the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park in the Australia is the one of the largest MPA in the world, protecting the coral reef and the seagrass pits and diverse the marine life. So, these marine protected areas aims to conserve marine biodiversity, protect the endangered species, and sustain fisheries by preserving or preventing breeding and the nursery ground. Management practices NPA include the regulating fisheries practices, monitoring the water quality, enforcing the no-take zone, or conducting the scientific research. Next one is sustainable practices, agriculture, forestry, and the fisheries. Sustainable practices in agriculture, forestry, and fisheries aim to balance the human need with the environmental conservation. And these practices promote the use of resources in way that do not deplete them, ensuring long-term ecological healthy and the productive system. So, sustainable agriculture involve farming practices that maintain soil health, conserve water, and reduce the chemical inputs. It's aimed to produce food while minimizing the environmental impact. Organic farming avoid synthetic pesticides and fertilizers using crop rotation and composting and biological pest control to maintain the soil fertility and reduce the pollution. If you are talking about the techniques of the sustainable practices in agriculture, these techniques include the crop diversification, agroforestry, conservation, integrated post management or pest management, and the precious agriculture. In that, the agroforestry integrate trees and shrubs into agriculture landscape, provided habitat for the wildlife, reducing the soil erosion and enhancing the biodiversity. So, what are the benefit of sustainable practices or sustainable agriculture? Sustainable agriculture enhance the food security, conserve the biodiversity, improve soil and the water quality that support the rural livelihood. So conservations reduce the soil erosion and increase the water retention, breathing, or we can say that the benefiting for both for the crop and also for the environment. Now, the sustainable forestry. Sustainable forestry practices manage forests to meet the current rate while preserving them from the future generation. These include maintaining the forest health, productivity, and the biodiversity. The Forest Stewardship Council FSC certification ensure that the timber product come from the responsibly managed forests that meet the environmental and the social standard. So, what are the technique? The techniques include the selective logging and reduce the impact of logging, reforestation, afforestation, and community-based forest management. So, selective logging include the harvesting species, trees, while preserving them, the overall structure and functioning of the forest ecosystem. If you are talking about the benefit, then the benefit of the sustainable forestry protect the wildlife habitat, reduce the deforestation, and support the local economic through the sustainable timber and non-timber forest product. So, reforestation project restore degraded lands, improve the carbon sequestration, and enhance the biodiversity. Next one is the sustainable fisheries. Okay, sustainable fisheries manage the fish stocks to ensure that fishing practices do not deplete the population or damage the marine ecosystem. It includes setting catch limited or protecting crucial habitat and reducing the bycatch. The Marine Steward Council MSC certification promote the sustainable fishing practices and help the consumer or customer to identify seafood from the well-managed fisheries. So, if we are talking about the techniques include the setting quotas, seasonal closures, okay, gear restrictions, marine reserve, and the ecosystem based management. And if you are talking about the example, there is an example setting catch limit based on the scientific assessment helps prevent overfishing and ensure that the fish population remain healthy and productive. Sustain, Sustainable fisheries support for the long-term viable of the fish stock, protect marine biodiversity, and sustain the livelihood of the fishing communities. In that case, the marine reserve provide the safe breeding ground for the fishes, contributing to the recovery of fish population and spillover benefit to surrounding fishing areas. So, in whole, the conservation strategies such as establishing protected area and promoting the sustainable practices agriculture forestry and fisheries are crucial for preserving the biodiversity and maintaining the ecological balance. These approach help protect habitat, ensure the sustainable use of the natural resources, and support the well-being of the communities. Next one is the legislation and policies. Legislation and international agreement play a crucial role in the biodiversity conservation by providing the legal framework and guideline for protecting the endangered species and regulating the international trade in the wildlife. So, if we are talking about the key component of these efforts of the endangered species, the international agreements such as the Convention on the Biodiversity or Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. This is the two major convention which protect the biological diversity. First one is Endangered Species, ESA. Okay, the Endangered Species is a landmark environmental law in the United States enacted in 1973. Its primary goal is to provide a framework for the conservation and protection of the endangered and threatened species for their habitat. The ESA aims to prevent the extinction of species by identifying species at risk and extinctions and implementing measures to recover their population and the habitat. So, if we are talking about the listing and the protection, under the ESA, species can be listed as either endangered and threatened, which is likely to become endangered in the forestable feature. Uh, Once listed, protection are enforced to conserve these species and their critical habitat. The Bald eagle, American national bird, was listed as endangered due to the habitat loss and the pesticides used. Okay, so ESA protection helps recover its population, and it was delisted in 2007. Critical habitat designation. The ESA mandate the designation of critical habitat for the listed species, which include the area essential for the survival of the recovery. Federal agency must consult with wildlife expert to ensure that action do not harm these habitat. The critical habitat designation for the northern spotted owl in the Pacific Northwest aim to protect the old growth forest vital for its survival. If we are talking about the recovery plans are developed for listed species to outline action and strategies for their recovery and delistings. These plans involve collaborating among federal, states, tribals, and local stakeholders. Okay, the California condor, once on the brink of extinction, has benefited from the ESC recovery efforts and including the captive breeding program and the habitat restoration. So, if you are talking about the impact of these conservations, the ESA has been credited with saving numerous species from extinctions and promoting their recovery, including the American alligator, gray wolf, and the humpback whale. So, the reintroduction of the grey wolf into the Yellowstone National Park contributed to the ecosystem balance and demonstrated the ESA effectiveness. If we are talking about the challenges, the ESA have faced challenges and criticism, including conflict between the conservation efforts and the economic interest, delay in the species listing and recovery actions, and disputes over land use or the property rights. Debate. Debate continues over ESA regulatory impact on landowner and industries, then particularly concerning restrictions on development and the resource extraction. Next one is CBD, Convention on the Biological Diversity. The Convention on Biological Diversity is a global treaty adopted in 1992 during the Earth Summit in Rio de Brazil. Its objective include conserving biodiversity, promoting sustainable use of biological resources, and ensuring fair and equitable sharing of the benefit arising from the genetic resources. The CBD emphasizes on the importance of biodiversity for sustainable development and set target for biodiversity conservation and the ecosystem restoration. If you are talking about the strategies plan for the biodiversity, the CBD strategic plan for biodiversity 2011 to 2020 set goals and target to address the biodiversity loss, including the reducing habitat loss, preventing species or endangered species, and enhancing the ecosystem resilience. In that case, the IG biodiversity targets under the CBD aim to achieve the significant reduction in the rate of biodiversity loss by 2020, although progress varied among the countries. National biodiversity strategies and the action plan. Parties to the Convention on the Biodiversity develop and implement the NBSCP, which we can say that the National Biodiversity Strategies and the Action Plan, which is help to guide the national effort in the biodiversity conservation and the sustainable use. And these plans involve stakeholders from government, civil society, and the uh, communities. So, Costa Rica NBSAP include measures to protect its rich biodiversity through the national park, sustainable agriculture practices, and payment for the ecosystem. If you are talking about the implementation and challenges, the Convention on the Biological Diversity implementation involve the cooperation among countries to share the scientific knowledge and technology transfer, capacity building, and the financial resource for the biodiversity conservation. In that case, the Nagoya Protocol, a supplement agreement to the CBD, address the access of genetic resources and benefit sharing, promoting fair and the equitable outcome from for countries and the different communities. If we are talking about the challenges faced by the Convention on Biodiversity, uh, it includes the funding constraint, okay, political will, conflicting priorities among sectors, inadequate monitoring and enforcement. Okay, it also includes addressing the emerging threats such as climate change and invasive species. The global diversity targets set by the CBD have not been fully met, underscoring the need of renewed commitment and enhance the cooperation at the national and the international level. And the next one is the Convention on International Trade in the Endangered Species in the Wildlife, uh, Fauna and Flora. CITES is an international agreement established in the 1975 and with the purpose of regulate international trade in the endangered species of the plant and the animal. It aims to ensure that the international trade does not threaten the species survival and promote the sustainable use of the wildlife resources. So, CITES regulate trade through a system of permits and certificate listing species in the three appendix based on their conservation status and the trade regulations. So, species are listed in the appendix 1, appendix 2nd, not necessarily threatened with the or we can say that nor threatened with the regulating requirement regulation. In that case, if you are talking about the example, African elephant are listed in the Appendix 1, and prohibiting in the international trade of iodine, expect the under exceptional circumstances authorized by the CITES. So, CITES required permit or certificate for the international trade of the listed species to ensure the trade is legal, sustainable, and does not harm the wild population. Export permits are issued to the country and certifying that the specimen was legally obtained and trade in the accordance of the CITES regulations. If you are talking about the implementation, CITES is implemented through the national laws and enforcement agencies supported by the secretarial based in the Geneva, Switzerland, and the parties to CITES cooperate through scientific committees, species working group, and the enforcement network. Operation Thunderstorm, coordinated by the Interpol, INTERPOL, and involving multiple countries, targeted wildlife trafficking network and lead to seizure of the illegal wildlife product. Okay, so CITES has contributed to the conservation of the endangered species by reducing illegal trade, promoting sustainable practices, raising the public awareness, and supporting the communal-based conservation effort. The recovery of populations such as the southern white rhinoceros in the South Africa highlight the role of CITES in regulating trade and protecting the species from the exploitation. So we can say that legislations such as endangered species and the international agreement convention like the CBT convention on the biodiversity and CITES are essential for the biodiversity conservation. They provide a legal framework, promote cooperation and cooperation among the countries, and establish guidelines for protecting endangered species, regulating the trade in the wildlife, and promoting the sustainable development practices globally. These efforts are critical for addressing threats to the biodiversity and ensuring the long-term sustainable of the ecosystem and the natural resources. Yes. So next one is the habitat restoration. Habitat restoration involves efforts to rehabilitate and restore the degraded ecosystem to their natural state, aiming to enhance the biodiversity, improve the ecosystem service, and support the recovery of the species. Okay, so the habitat restoration include the project for the reforestation and the wetland restoration, each offering unique benefit to the ecological health and the species recovery. So first one is the project reforestation. In that, reforestation is a process of replanting trees in the deforested or degraded area to restore forest ecosystem and enhance the biodiversity. Reforestation project may involve planting native tree species, restoring the forest structure, and improving the soil health for the support diverse plant and the animal communities. If we are talking about the techniques of the project reforestation, so the native species planting the native tree species ensure the ecological compatibility and enhance the habitat sustainable for the local wildlife. Okay, so agroforestry, in that integrating trees and the agriculture practices promote the sustainable land use and improve the soil fertility and provide the additional benefit such as shade and the windbreak. Agroforestry system in Africa combine tree plants with the crop production, enhancing the biodiversity and support the local livelihood. It also helps in the control or fire management. Control burns and the fire suppression strategies help regenerate forest, reduce the fuel load, and promote the natural regeneration of fire adapted species. In that case, in the North America, prescribed burn are used to restore a fire dependent ecosystem like the pine and benefiting species adopted for the periodic fire regimes. If we are talking about the benefit of project reforestation, in that reforestation restore the ecosystem function such as the carbon sequestration and the soil stabilization, water filtration, enhancing the resilience to the climate change. Restored forest in the Costa Rica support the watershed protection, reducing the erosion or the sedimentation in river and the streams. Restored forests provide the habitat for the diverse plant and animal species, supporting the population recovery and promoting the genetic diversity. Reforestation effort in the Sumatra, Indonesia benefit benefit for the critically endangered species like the Sumatra by expanding the forest habitat and the connectivity. Reforestation project it also helps for the local community in the conservation efforts and provide the employment, training, and the opportunity for the sustainable land management. So, the community-based reforestation initiative in India involve the indigenous community in planting and protecting the native tree species, fostering the stewardship and the stewardship of the forest resources. Next is project wetland restoration. In that, wetland restoration involves the rehabilitations or of the degraded wetland ecosystem. Rehabilitations of the degraded wetland ecosystem, including the swamp and bogs, to improve the water quality and biodiversity and the flood regulations. If you are talking about the example, wetland restorations project aim to recreate the hydrological condition, remove invasive species, and enhance the habitat diversity for aquatic and the terrestrial species. Hydrological restoration. In that, restoring natural water flow, including the water level and seasonal flooding regime, promote the wetland health and support the aquatic biodiversity. Reconnecting the flood plains in the river basin, enhance the habitat for the water flow and improve the nutrition cycle in the restored wetland. So, controlling the invasive species and plant native vegetarians enhance the habitat quality and support the food web for wetland dependent species. In that case, removing the invasive red species and reintroducing the native vegetarian in the European wetland improves the habitat condition for the endangered uh, species like a European tree frog. Okay, removing the excess sedimentations or sediment and the pollutant improve the water quality, restore the aquatic habitat, and enhance the ecosystem resilience to the climate impact. So, in that, if we are talking about the benefit, water quality improvement, food regulations, carbon sequestration, wetland restoration, filter Pollutant absorb the excess nutrition and improve the water clarity, which benefiting the downstream ecosystem and the human communities. Restore wetland in the uh, Chesapeake Bay watershed reduce the nutrition runoff, supporting the recovery of fish and the shellfish population. Healthy wetland absorb and store the flood water, reducing the flood risk and helpful the communities and the infrastructure. Wetlands store the carbon in the soil and the vegetation, mitigation climate change impact by the reducing greenhouse gas emission. So we can say that the habitat restorations through the projects such as reforestation and restoration play a crucial role in conserving the biodiversity, enhance the ecosystem service, and promoting the sustainable land management practices. These efforts restore ecological balance, support the species recovery, and engage the local community in the conservation initiative, contributing in the long-term health and resilience of the ecosystem worldwide. Community and the involvement in the conservation. Okay. Community involvement in conservation refers to engaging the local community in the decision making process and implementation of initiative aimed at biodiversity conservation and sustainable resource management. This approach recognizes the importance of the local knowledge, tradition, and empowerment in achieving conservation goals. So, if we are talking about the key aspects of community involvement, these are empowerment, sustainable livelihood. Okay, so the community-led conservation project are initiative driven by the local communities to address the environmental challenges, protect natural resources, and promote the sustainable development. These projects often involve partnership with NGO, government, and the academic institution to leverage the resources and expertise within the respecting communities, values, and the priorities. Okay, so if we are talking about the type of initiative the local can take, first one is community forest management. In that, the communities manage forest resources sustainably, including the timber harvest, non-timber forest produce, and the ecotourism. Okay, marine protected area, coastal communities engage in MP management, conserving marine biodiversity through the sustainable fishing practices and tourism. In agronomical and sustainable agriculture, farmers adopt the organic farming, crop diversification, and agroforestry to enhance the soil fertility, reduce the pesticide use, and conserve the biodiversity. Okay, if we are talking about the benefit, then benefits are the empowerment, sustainable livelihood. So, in empowerment, community involvement empowers local residents to participate in the conservation, planting, policy advocacy, and the natural resource management. Capacity building, training program, and workshop build the local skills in ecological monitoring, sustainable land use, and alternative livelihood. So, in sustainable livelihood, community led enterprises such as ecotourism ventures and the craft provide the alternate source of income while promoting the conservation values. In that case, the community want the lodgers in Nambia benefit from the wildlife tourism, supporting the wildlife conservation and the local employment. Okay. Sustainable resource management practices ensure the long-term benefit for the ecosystem services, including the water provision, climate regulation, and the soil fertility. Conservation including or initiatives preserve the indigenous knowledge, culture, practices, and traditional ecological knowledge. In that, the conservation project improve access to the clean water, healthcare, education, and enhance the overall quality of the life. So, if we are talking about the challenges and considerations, first one is resource constraint, second one is government issue, and the external pressure. In resource constraint, limited funding, technical expertise, and the infrastructure pose challenges to community led to the conservation initiative. Okay, balancing local priorities with the national policies and regulations require effective governance and the stakeholder engagement. Okay, economic development, population growth, and the climate change impact community resilience and the conservation outcome. So we can say that the community involvement in conservation fosters collaboration, empowerment, and sustainable development, promoting the stewardship of the natural resources and biodiversity. Local initiative empower communities to address the environmental challenges with enhancing livelihood and preserving the cultural heritage, contributing to the resilient and inclusive conversion efforts worldwide. Okay, so this is all for today. We will cover the next topic in the next